Have you ever heard a sound in the dead of night that you just can't explain? A scratch from within the walls? A whisper on the wind? Most of us dismiss it. We tell ourselves it's just the house settling, or an animal outside. That's what I used to do too. But that was before the house on Blackwood Lane. Before the whisper started calling my name. My story begins with an inheritance I never expected. A distant great aunt, a woman I'd only seen in faded photographs, left me her entire estate. The jewel of this inheritance was a sprawling, Gothic revival house tucked away in a forgotten corner of New England. It was called Blackwood Manor. The lawyer's letter described it as a place of significant historical character. That was one way to put it. Another way would be creepy as all get out. When I first saw it, standing against a perpetually gray sky, its pointed gables looked like skeletal fingers reaching for the clouds. The windows were dark, vacant eyes, and the wind whistling through the ancient trees sounded like a mournful sigh. But I was young, broke, and the idea of owning a property like this, free and clear, was too good to pass up. I told myself a fresh coat of paint and some modern furniture would chase the shadows away. I was so naive. The first few days were deceptively normal. I spent my time exploring the endless rooms, each one a dusty time capsule filled with furniture draped in white sheets, like rows of silent ghosts. The air was thick with the scent of old paper and decay. It was on the third night that the unsettling events began. It started subtly. I'd leave a book on a table in the library, only to find it back on the shelf the next morning. Doors I was certain I had closed would be standing wide open. I blamed it on my own forgetfulness, the stress of the move. Then came the sounds. A soft, rhythmic tapping from inside the walls of my bedroom, always starting at 3:00 a.m. It sounded like a fingernail, patiently, deliberately, tapping on wood. I'd press my ear to the cold plaster, and the tapping would stop, only to resume the moment I pulled away. I searched for the source. Bad plumbing, rodents, anything rational. I found nothing. One evening, I was in the grand parlor, trying to get the ancient fireplace to light. As I knelt on the hearth, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. Etched into the dark marble of the mantelpiece were faint, spidery carvings. They weren't decorative patterns, they were names. Dozens of them, one after another, all with the same last name, Blackwood. The last name on the list, barely visible, was my great-aunt's, and next to it was a single, freshly carved initial, my own. A cold dread, colder than the unlit room, washed over me. This wasn't just an old house. It was a record, a ledger, and my name was the next entry. That night, the whispers started. They weren't in my head. They were real, slithering out from the dark corners of the house. At first, they were just indistinct murmurs, like a radio tuned between stations. But slowly, they began to coalesce into a single, sibilant word. My name. I started digging into the town's local history, spending my days in the dusty archives of the local library, desperate for answers. The story I unearthed was darker than I could have imagined. The Blackwood family wasn't just old, they were cursed. Generations ago, an ancestor named Silas Blackwood was said to have made a pact with something ancient. Something that lived in the woods that surrounded the manor. In exchange for wealth and longevity, the entity demanded a price, a soul from each generation, to be claimed within the walls of the house. The entity was known only as the Taker of Names. The townspeople I spoke to would go pale at the mention of Blackwood Manor. They spoke of disappearances, of family members who simply vanished from the house, never to be seen again. They said the house itself was the vessel, the prison for this malevolent being. And it was hungry. It grew stronger with each soul it consumed. My great-aunt hadn't died of old age. The house had taken her. And now it was my turn. Armed with this horrifying knowledge, I knew I couldn't just leave. The pact was tied to the bloodline. Running would only delay the inevitable. The entity was bound to the house, and as the last of the line, I was its final meal. I had to face it. My only hope was to find a way to break the curse. The library archives mentioned a hidden room within the manor, Silas Blackwood's original study, where the pact was supposedly made. Legend said it held the secret to severing the connection. Finding the room became my obsession. I tapped on every wall, pulled on every candlestick, and inspected every bookshelf. The house seemed to fight me at every turn. Objects would fly off shelves as I passed, doors would slam shut, and the whispers grew into mocking laughter that echoed through the empty halls. The tapping in the walls was now a frantic, angry pounding. Finally, in the main library, behind a huge tapestry depicting a grim hunting scene, I found it. A section of the wall that felt hollow. Prying it open, I revealed a dark, narrow staircase spiraling down into blackness. The air that rose from the opening was foul, ancient, and filled with a palpable sense of despair. With a trembling hand, holding a flashlight, I descended. The study was just as the legends described. It was a circular chamber, its walls lined with rotting books and strange alchemical instruments. In the center of the room, carved into the stone floor, was a complex, star-like symbol. And in the middle of that symbol sat a single, ancient, leather-bound book. The ink on its pages was a rusty brown, and as I opened it, I realized with a jolt of horror that it was written in blood. This was Silas Blackwood's journal. It detailed the ritual, the summoning, and the terrible price. As I read, the temperature in the room plummeted. A shadow began to pool in the corner of the chamber, a patch of darkness so complete it seemed to absorb the light from my flashlight. It shifted, elongated, and began to take a form. A tall, emaciated figure with limbs that were too long, too thin, and bent at unnatural angles. It had no face, only a smooth, pale expanse of skin where features should have been. This was the taker of names. The whispers were deafening now, coming from the creature itself, a chorus of all the souls it had consumed. I could hear my great-aunt's voice among them, begging me to run. The final pages of the journal described how to break the pact. It wasn't about fighting the creature. It was about rejection. The pact was a contract, and it could be voided if the heir willingly renounced the Blackwood name and all its holdings, severing the bloodline's claim. But there was a catch. The renunciation had to be declared in the entity's presence, and the house itself had to be destroyed by fire, cleansing the land of its taint. The creature glided towards me, one long skeletal hand reaching out. I could feel the life being pulled from me, a chilling cold seeping into my bones. My vision blurred. With the last of my strength, I screamed the words from the journal. "I renounce the name of Blackwood! I renounce this house and all that is in it! The contract is broken!" A shriek of fury, a sound that ripped through the very fabric of reality, erupted from the faceless being. The room began to shake violently. As the creature recoiled, I scrambled back up the stairs, grabbing an old kerosene lamp on my way out of the library. I smashed it against the floor, and flames erupted, greedily consuming the ancient wood and dry paper. I didn't look back. I burst out the front door and ran, not stopping until I reached the edge of the property. I turned just in time to see Blackwood Manor consumed by a column of fire, roaring into the night sky. And in the flames, for just a second, I saw it. A writhing, screaming, faceless shape, dissolving into ash and smoke. The house burned to the ground. Nothing was left but a blackened foundation. I walked away from Blackwood Lane that night with nothing but the clothes on my back and the chilling memory in my soul. I'm free of the curse, but I'm not free of the fear. Because sometimes, late at night, when the wind howls just right, I can still hear a faint whisper. And it's calling my name. Thanks for sticking with me through that chilling tale. If you enjoy stories that keep you up at night, make sure to hit that subscribe button.